Well, hello. Welcome to Two Blurred Girls podcast. I'm Tomeka, and Tamara is not here because she is on date night with the hubby. But we
Mm.
have a special guest, John from Movie Lovers Unite. Say hey, John.
Hey everyone, it's good to be here. Hey, it's been a while, huh? It's
Yeah,
been
it has been a
it's
while.
been a long. I think the last time I was on here was when we were doing our movie review for a Netflix movie, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
harder they fall.
The Harder They Fall. I think it was for The Harder They Fall. It was like the
Oh,
last time that we've done a. So yeah, it's been close to 90 years, just about since the last
yeah.
time we've done a review.
And how many times have I been on your show?
If you count the Batman reviews, you've been on here there more than I have. But it was still fun. It was
Yeah,
definitely fun and well worth it.
yeah. Well, John, you're welcome anytime on the show. I just want you to know that.
I do appreciate that.
Okay.
So,
But
so tell everybody what we're reviewing tonight, though.
I am. This my show.
Sorry,
You the guest. Jesus.
all right. I'll keep my mouth shut. Go on
But
ahead.
anyway, we are this is part of our Black History Month episode, and we're going to be reviewing the HBO documentary. It came out in 2018, I believe. Documentary film King in the Wilderness. So that's what we're reviewing. And basically, this documentary gives like personal accounts of Martin Luther King Jr.'s last few years, like right after the voting rights. So it's just his friends and family giving an account of how things were for him leading up to the tragic assassination. So, John, what stood out to you?
Okay, so the thing that I really liked was having basically everyone that marched with him talking about what it was like to march alongside him, also to diving into their stories and also how real it is and how they painted the picture around Martin Luther King Jr. and stuff like that. Because here's the thing, I'm going to be honest with you. In our textbooks, they never really painted him as the hero, as someone that's trying to help the community or anything. Our
Mm,
textbooks in history sadly depicts them differently and also separates us from being in unity in a
mm,
sense.
mhm,
Because here's the thing, I've learned, especially with Jesse Jackson and stuff like that, oh, they're trying to divide us. They're this, they're that. With Martin Luther King, oh, he's just trying to divide us even more and things like that. And that's the picture that I got when I was a kid,
hmm,
and that's this picture that I stuck with. But up until recently, when we did our Black History Month last month and things like that, and me asking you questions and me learning, which I appreciate you helping me to learn and walk my way through everything. With this, I learned even deeper. I learned that there's two different types of textbooks. I'm going to call it racial textbooks versus um, versus what actual textbooks actually are.
mhm,
And this goes to show you how divided we are as a country, to know that there's two different types of textbooks that I grew up with. No wonder why this country is divided. No wonder why there's racism within our school systems, too. It doesn't also help, too, that you also have adults and stuff like that, as well as part of the continue on what Martin Luther King went through. But to me, if we went on ahead and had our history books written the way that this documentary was, I guarantee you there would not be that much of a split between us. We would
mhm,
find some type of common ground somewhere within the context of the pages that we read versus how divided we are. But the thing that really stood out to me as well, aside from the fact where these people are telling their stories about Martin Luther King, the thing that stood out to me was this. I always wanted to know what happened after the marches
mhm,
and what life was like afterwards.
mhm,
And this is a clear documentary on that and the anxieties that Dr. Martin Luther King went through. And also, too, this is something that I feel like that I really had to say. He went from outside of his own comfort zone and went above and beyond everything. In other words, is whenever I found out, oh, he was actually speaking out against the Vietnam War and stuff like that. I had no idea that he spoke up against it or he was against the Vietnam War at all. All I knew was from one thing: Selma walking amongst people and stuff like that, into different states and stuff like that, and try to, find some type of unity within everybody with the whole racial march and stuff. I had no idea that this was heavily on him, and he never spoke out against the Vietnam War until like later on after the marching was pretty much done and over with. And I thought that was courageous of him to be like, you know what, we have a bigger purpose than just this right here. And also too, another thing, I don't mean to ramble, but there was just so much stuff that was packed into it.
Yeah,
I really liked. But I don't want to seem like I'm just taking over or anything like that, because, but thing that I really have to say another thing, what you and Tamara talked about on the other documentary that you watched, stuff like that too.
Dreamland. Yeah, Dreamland about like Wall Street.
Okay. So you guys talked about how you guys thought racism was just in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. And that's what we're known as. And even Martin Luther King thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Racism is just in the South. That's where the evil is. There's a higher class in the East. There's no division amongst anybody on that side, until he really researched it and realized, the North also has racism too in it. And they're also very divided because, like I told you before, I don't know if I remember telling you, but in Massachusetts and Boston, they were very separated. You had Italians living on one side of one part of Boston. You had Irish living in another. You had all kinds of groups, ethnic groups, stuff like that, living outside of that and everything too. So they were very divided. If one person went into that territory, you're talking about havoc. You're talking about how much hell someone would go through just because they're outside of their territory. Like, you're not allowed to even step foot in Quincy if you weren't Irish or anything like that. Or in Southie. If you're a Southie, if you're a Southie, you're actually part of the Irish neighborhood of Boston. Yeah. If you're in the east side of Boston, that's your Italian neighborhoods and stuff like that. And everything is just sectioned off. So, and also too, I was actually very arrogant to know this too, because I didn't realize this from someone that, I'm from the North, of course. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, I've been living down in the South all my life, right? So I'm looking at only one small picture. I'm looking at racism in the South only. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking in the North or anything like that where I'm from until later on, until I started watching some more stuff about Boston itself and documentaries on Boston, and realized how very divided it was, and also to my mom telling me stories as well. So to see Martin Luther King go into a territory that he does not know anything about and try to do a peaceful act of protesting without violence was very impressive. And I really have to say, it's encouraging, it's courageous, it's inspiring. And I also liked how he said this: we're not free. He's talking about Black people in general. They're not. Here's the thing: with white people and everything, we consider ourselves free because of the fact that we have no obligation of looking behind our backs or anything like that. We have all the rights as a white person. Black people don't have the same rights that we do. So therefore, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. People get looked down. They don't have the same rights that we do or anything like that. And that's a damn shame. Mm-hmm. We should not be like that at all. We should have Black people should have the same equal rights as we do. We should not be living in fear behind y'all's backs or anything like that. you guys, and I agree with Martin Luther King, you guys are not free. You're not free from anything. It may say it on paper or whatever. Yeah, that's nice and on paper, but it's a fugazi. It's fake.
Mhm.
And it needs, and to me, if you're going to be free, you have to have the same equal rights as somebody else. Otherwise, you're just chained up to a fake letter to something that's not even true. And that's exactly what I feel like that I saw in the documentary. Whenever he said, "We're not free." They're free. He's basically, I'm not going for verbatim or anything, but he's basically saying we're not free. They're free. We have to march. We have to fight for what we have to fight for 10 times harder than anybody and make it known that we're not going to take it anymore with a peaceful protest. But that's what I saw. So
It's all
I'm
right,
gonna let you
John.
take the floor.
Let it out, John. Just let it out.
I have plenty
Uh,
more to say. I promise.
yeah. Everything you saying is on point with the documentary, really. So that's why I just let you go. But yeah, it was interesting. I first saw this documentary probably when it first came out in 2018. Um, but yeah, it like I said, open with I like to think of it as the pinnacle of King um just realizing there's something more than just civil rights that he needs to speak about. Like it opens with this interview that he did, and I forgot what station. I don't know if it was CBS News or what it was, but it opened with the interview, and the guy's just asking him, what do you think about the bus boycott? And it's been kind of like years later, right? Just reflecting on that, and he's like, it went well, we're just trying to march and just have rights as a citizen as everybody else has. But then it starts to shift, and he's talking about, there's three evils in the world. He starts to take a look at economic hardship and militarism, you know,
Yep.
and of course racism as well. So that's what you were talking about. He starts to shift a little bit and puts his focus on the Vietnam War. And I was surprised too that Coretta was the one that was protesting before, he even started to focus on the Vietnam War. She was out there marching with the students. And, I think a combination of what she was doing, and then just maybe after he won that Nobel Peace Prize, he started to think, I'm just speculating, right? If I got this Peace Prize and I'm only focused on just rights for us, what about this Vietnam War? Like, this Peace Prize is supposed to be for all of humanity. Like, I'm covering this whole spectrum. So that's what I
I
was
like how he
thinking.
was questioning it though.
Yeah, he started to question, I think I need to go bigger. And also with the South, the voting rights went through, right? So his main thing was, okay, so things are starting to happen in the South. So what about the North? What about the brothers and sisters in the North? They this voting rights thing, we have to appeal to them. So like I said, it was conflict within the movement because they were like, well, we still have a little bit more work to do in the South. So they kind of had to divide the movement. Like some people stayed in the South, and then him and I think Andrew Young and a couple other people from SCLC went to the North, like Chicago primarily. And like you were saying, also, they start to see that Chicago is different. I like what Andrew Young was saying. He said that when he was in Chicago, he didn't, he was, when he was in the South, he was prepared to die, basically, what he was saying, because he was familiar with the territory. When he came to Chicago, he was like, oh, this kind of rough. Somebody could stab me in my sleep. And they moved into the slums. And once they started to move into like this slum building, it started to broaden their perspective even more. Like, okay,
Right, the
yes,
horizon. Right.
yeah, racism, yes, but deeper, what contributes to that is also, it's like a Venn diagram. You got racism, right?
It's like
So
economics.
yeah, in the other circle you have economic hardship, and then you got poor education. And so he started to kind of broaden his horizon and just look at, okay, there's other factors that contribute to racism in Chicago. And that's what impressed me too, John. Just, it took him going outside his comfort zone, because if he just stayed in the South, he wouldn't have ever known anything about this. But
Right.
it took him going outside his comfort zone to go to Chicago, to live amongst the people in the poorest neighborhood, in the slums, and listen to the people talking about the issues that they go through, and to know that, okay, this is a different this is a different playing field, right? Like in the
Right.
South, it was, clear racism. And I'm sure it was other things like economic hardship and everything else. But when he went to Chicago, it was really in his face. They can see that, yes, these people, they don't have the services that they need. Um, there's welfare, there's the education system is not good. So we need to tackle all these other things. And that's a way that we could also tackle racism while we're tackling these things.
Right. Because to me, living in the slums has a lot to do with the racial issues though too.
Mhm.
Beyond that.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. They actually had to get up and help this one family shovel coal into their furnace just to stay warm. They're not living under the best conditions as if you were like a rich white person or a middle class person either. You were working under the worst conditions that you can think of when it goes into the housing projects and things like that. And Martin Luther King sees the problem. Yes, it's racism, but it's beyond racism, like you mentioned, Tamika. It's
Mhm.
being in this condition that you're in, and then they also place you in that place. You didn't ask to be placed there; they put you there to separate and to separate everyone from each other and everything too. So you have the people of the govern that govern everything that's in charge of this, and that's where they place you at. And
Mhm.
Martin Luther King's even looking at that issue. And I like how he talks to the political people at B though too, the higher people who also respect him as a person and him is actually listening to him. That's the thing that I really liked about it was you actually have people listening to him on the issues that he had with the housings, with racial issues, and also too education for people of color, and for them to have the same education as a white person should have the same education. And also too, schools are not the best, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
They're all separated. They're all in this one neighborhood, separated from everybody else, which is not right. It should not be sanctioned off. It should be everyone going to the same schools, learning, having the same education as everybody else. But Martin Luther King saw the problem and he saw it out, and I really liked how he brought it to everybody's attention. Is look, my march goes way beyond just a march. It goes way beyond racism. You guys need to change your critical way of thinking, your critical way of living, and also too, we have to be the ones who winds up doing the very best that we can do and everything too to help people have the education they deserve, get the better jobs that are the same jobs that everybody else has, and have a better living for everybody because nobody wants to be in those slums
Mhm.
or anything. I know I wouldn't want to be in those slums living in that way where they placed you there. And I was like, well, you can go in here and get yourself a job, get yourself out of that situation. How?
Mhm.
When you don't have the same equal rights and pay as someone else does, it makes it 10 times harder to get out of the rut that they placed you in. and everything, and you're telling people, oh, it's okay, you guys need to go on ahead and get that, you guys need to get your work boots on and everything, and go ahead and get yourself a better job. I'm like, how? There's favoritism within the work, nepotism inside the workplace. There's racism within the workplace. There's a lot of other issues inside the workplace itself. So how can someone better themselves? And even when they're trying their damnedest and trying to get the best education and trying to get the jobs that they want, and they're still being looked down on, and they're still having to fight and scrape for everything that they have to get out of that situation that they're in. And pretty much even with landlords and that sanction too, I bet, and within those walls, they're going to be 10 times hard on those people too, and to the point where they're going to get evicted. Then what they're going to do? Now you have homeless people living out on the streets where you're sanctioned off. You're not getting the best education. You're not getting the best healthcare. You're not getting any. You're not making anything, any ends meet or anything like that. So yeah, how are people supposed to go on ahead, get dust off their bootstraps and everything, and go to work when you don't have the same equal rights or the equal pay that someone else has? It's very contradictory. It deals with economics. It deals with racism. It deals with people govern everything and makes these rules, stipulations, and that's a damn shame. And Martin Luther King made a lot of improvements, but like he said, there's more changes that has to be made in order for us to be able to be in a society as one. And we have to be the better people. We have to be the better ones to stand out like Martin Luther King did, where we can show that his legacy is living on through him, through us, that we can get along and that we can succeed and we can be there for one another and not having this hatred and this racism against each other. Because otherwise, his legacy that he built is being destroyed because of that. But going on with the documentary, though, too, and this is something that I really have to say that I didn't know about, was how much he wanted to do the right thing and how much he was willing to take to do it with his own anxieties, his own insecurities, him questioning his every motive, even his own people who followed him through all this stuff in Selma. And he's like, wait, you want to speak out on the war? And they're like, I don't know if you should do that. And he's like, look, I've kept my mouth shut long enough. All the way up to what, 1965, basically? Around that time?
Yeah.
He kept he was quiet all that time, and all that time he was been raging inside of him and not letting him speak his mind. And you can tell that it was troubling on his mind. And everybody was like, well, I don't think you should go down this route. He's like, no, I need to speak up. Otherwise, no one's going to listen. Otherwise, who else will? So he winds up speaking up against the Vietnam War. Next thing you know, you have other people saying, "Oh, it's communism because of the fact that," and stuff like. I'm like, you don't even know what communism is. Communism is what's going on right now. It's dictatorship on what's going on right now in present time. That's communism. That's and what they're going through is nowhere near as rough as what. To be honest with you, we're not going through the same struggles that they are. That's not communism. You need to get your facts straight, people. That's not communism. It's about having the same equal rights as you do. And then you're throwing the swastika, white power, all that stuff, just splits us up even more and makes people very uncomfortable. Not even to be associated with white people at all, because of the fact that they have that, because people of color have that image in their heads and everything. And that's not, that, to be honest with you, that's not right. They shouldn't even be like that. But anyways, I don't want to be on my soapbox. I'm sorry.
No,
but
yeah. No,
it's just certain things
yeah,
that really aggravate me with that, with
yeah,
racial people like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah, like you were saying, wow, you were saying a lot, and everything you were saying was just like I was nodding my head because I was like, yeah, that's on point. Like you were saying, he was starting to speak out about the Vietnam War, and people that backed his movement started pulling out financially, and that takes a blow on the movement because the movement has to be supported financially for all the travel arrangements. And people were
Right.
telling him you should stick to civil rights because you don't know anything about foreign affairs. And it was it hurt him because he was like, people think I'm dumb. I don't know about foreign affairs. Like he keeps up with the news and the foreign affairs of the times.
That was Tamika, to be honest with you, that was something that very surprised me about the foreign affairs and
Hmm.
how updated he is on it. That
Yeah.
was mind blowing. I had no idea.
Well, any man that quotes Gandhi and Nietzsche and Thoreau and all these philosophers, I assume he would know about foreign affairs and politics. So
True.
I don't know why people just put him in one box. He quotes Gandhi and he reads all these things. Like he knows about world affairs. He was just shut up in a box where he had to go, okay, well, let me focus on this first. And like I said, when once things start to shift for him, I I feel like as the years went by and the more dangers start to come upon his life, he probably said, well, I'm gonna speak out against something that I always wanted to speak out against. It was kind of like, well, balls to the wall, let's do it. Vietnam is bad. I don't like the war. I'm just gonna say it, because he was living every moment like it was his last. So I think that's where the him being brave came from, to speak out against the Vietnam War. Even at the face of his critics. Like even when he was in Chicago and he was talking to Mayor Daley, and they always have the Mayor Daley machine, as they call it, which means people are in Mayor Daley's pockets. The black ministers of Chicago, they were speaking out against King, and they was like, he doesn't know about what goes on in Chicago. He needs to go back to the South where he belongs and start speaking about the Vietnam War. Now, they are puppets of Daley because Daley funds their churches and everything else about them. So yeah, of course they're gonna speak out against King. It was a shame. And like Andrew was saying, he was shocked by it because in the South, I guess there was more solidarity. Even if they didn't agree with King, they had to be kind of together as one, right? And in the North, it was kind of divided. You had black preachers speaking against him. You had like these black organizations speaking against him, and you started to see that rift.
Him to go home. Yeah.
Yeah, they're telling him to get out of Chicago, go home. Even Mayor Daley was like, "You causing too much trouble." And where also they touched on was in the once he got to Chicago, I think Andrew Young was saying this, it was some type of air of, oh, this is the North. We're not like the South. We're not racist. Like he was hinting on the fact that their racism was subverted, like we're not like that. We're more progressive here, and them being there and marching, it kind of brought to the surface that subversion that they were trying to suppress. Because when they marched, like you said, they marched through these neighborhoods, and and I know I speak about Andrew Young a lot. It was more people like King's lawyers, his secretary, people that were in SCLC. I think John Lewis spoke. This was in 2018. John Lewis died. He's dead now. Jesse Jackson spoke. But Andrew Young, he said some pivotal things, which is why I'm talking about his quotes a lot. Um, he was saying Chicago was the most segregated city he's ever been in. But segregated place he's ever been in, because he said there's all these enclaves like you were talking about. Like you have the Irish on one side, then you have the Polish on another side, and Italians on another side. And he was like, it was like ethnic enclaves in each area. So they decided to march in one of the places, which I forgot which place it was in Chicago they marched, but he said it may have been like 10,000 residents and people out there, just white people, just saying all type of stuff and telling them to go home, swastika signs, Confederate flags. I said it.
And also
And
too,
all
it
this
was
other
also
stuff.
tell me this now. Let me ask you this. I mean,
Yeah.
I interrupt you. I'm sorry for
Mhm.
cutting you off. But okay, you see this one sign. Now, tell me this does not sound familiar, right?
Mhm.
There's one sign. What about white people's lives? Doesn't that
Yeah.
sound like something today?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You
What
know,
about white
like
civil
whenever,
rights? I think that's what one of the posters said.
yeah. And it's
Hmm.
not even about that. It's not. It's so much deeper
Hmm.
than just that.
Yeah.
Because they're not
Yeah.
saying that one side's better than the other or anything like that. Until you look behind your back, until you are being discriminated, and you're also getting your ass kicked in a slum neighborhood where you can't make ends meet
Hmm.
and everything, you have no reason to complain about any kind of civil rights.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and also, too, I also feel like this Martin Luther King was not just fighting for people of color, but he's also fighting for the Irish, the Italians, everything that's been segregated off. He's fighting for them too. That's why you see them marching. That's why you actually have a little bit of more of an understanding through other cultures, because they see the movement that Martin Luther King is doing. But until you are fighting for your life every single day and turning your back around and everything, you know,
Yeah.
that's the way I feel about it. Because of
Yeah.
the fact that it's not one life is better than the other or anything like that. It's walking in fear, walking at not knowing what's going to happen to you because of your skin color and everything. That's the issue. And that's where the Black Lives Matter stuff comes from. And everything is because of the fact that Black lives do matter because Black people are actually being targeted. We're not the ones who's being targeted. It's ethnic groups, other people that are different than white people, and people that are afraid of people that are different or indifferent of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It and I guess going to my point, like you know, yeah, they had all these signs, like you were saying, like white. What about white civil rights and Andrew Young was saying that because he was there marching with King, and he said marching in that condition was the most frightful he's ever been, and he's marched in Selma, and he's like, in South, and when you're marching in the South, maybe a couple hundred Klansmen shows up, but he's like, it was like 10,000 white people, like residents that come from other neighborhoods, like a parade, and the police couldn't really contain them, and they were throwing smoke bombs and everything else. And I think that's where, because King was trying to do the nonviolent approach in the North, but I think the more he was in the North, the more he saw that this is more complex. Like you have the mayor involved in this, and you got his black cronies involved in this, and you got all these things. The political machine is against him in the North. So it was very tough for him to do this nonviolent campaign. And part of the reason I believe he was going to a nonviolent approach is because black people didn't have access to weapons to defend themselves. So it was kind of just for their own safety. I don't think he did it like, oh yeah, non-violence, it's okay, peace and love. I think he was really trying to protect
No.
people and say, we don't have guns and machines like these white people. This is why non-violence has to be the way. It was a form of protection. Now that I'm looking at it, like you were saying, now that we're looking at this from a different lens, we see that the nonviolent approach is a means of protection, and we start to see King in another light, and you start to see that he was more radical. It was more than what your textbooks tell you, because in the textbooks they box him into Martin Luther King, civil rights, and that and the speech on Washington and Selma, and that's all you know. And then he died. It's like no, it was
Yep.
like
Very
Vietnam
short.
War.
That's
Yeah,
it.
very
Very short
short,
description to make.
short,
I'm gonna be
right?
honest.
Incident, very
My
short,
textbook was just like that.
very short, to the point. Turn the next page, you know, and then you have like
Right.
one
It's like,
part,
well, Martin Luther King, well, he died. Okay.
yeah,
Now we're gonna
and
talk about the Civil War.
yeah,
What?
and Malcolm X was even shorter. It was like he spoke against Martin Luther King, the end. And I was like, dang, the end.
Uh,
you
You
know,
got more context than I did. I got zero. Oh man.
well, I
I'm gonna
see.
be honest with you.
I'm from Atlanta, right? So that's the home of Martin Luther King. So we got a little bit of that, a little bit about him, and we got just a one sentence of Malcolm X because he's a little too
I
radical.
didn't even get a sentence
Yeah.
about Malcolm X.
What? You're in the north too?
No, I'm Mississippi. Like in my
Oh,
school system,
yeah.
we didn't. I'm gonna be honest with you. Zero. Not
Dang.
even a paragraph about Malcolm X. Not even a
Mm,
Malcolm. Not even. We didn't even have an X on
dang.
our notebook paragraphs. I'm not. All we
Mm,
got. I'm gonna tell you that. Just want to know what the depiction that we got from him.
mm.
Same depiction that we got from Martin Luther King. Same thing with the Black Panther movement that
Oh
I
yeah.
told you about when we did the Judas and the Black Messiah.
Hmm.
Thing.
Yeah. Check out our
All
show.
always.
Plugging
Yep,
out.
you can get the audio only edition on Movie Lovers Unite, but
Yep.
just scroll through all my 500 and something episodes to find it. That's
And
the
the Black
key.
Messiah. Yes.
But my point is this though, all jokes aside and everything, was this. This is how they pictured him. Someone that splits the that's causing a disturbance and splitting the people. That's how we were depicted of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only description that we have of him.
Yeah.
And even whenever I was asking questions about Malcolm X, you know what made me question about Malcolm X, though? Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
Mm,
was my first time ever hearing Malcolm X's name.
dang. Okay.
I'm gonna, so I went on ahead and asked my teacher about Malcolm X because I'm a history nerd. I
Mm-hmm.
like knowing about history. He goes, oh, that was somebody that was dividing the country and was causing hell.
Oh,
And he was also a Muslim. He was also a guy who, and yeah, it went through those emotions. And that was like the only picture that I had of him
mm,
and everything. So I had no context of who he actually was as a person.
yeah.
All I got was a very small a description of what he was from somebody else, not through a textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was through a textbook, it'd be like, well, he was a Buddhist and he died. That
Dang.
would probably be the description of Malcolm X.
Mm,
Next page.
mm,
Let's talk about Martin Luther King. Next page
mm.
after that.
Yeah. Yeah. King
You
gets two
know?
paragraphs,
But
and then Malcolm X gets one sentence in my textbook. And yeah, I
wow.
I think not my personal textbook, but the textbook in school. But I heard about Malcolm X. Um, luckily in middle school we had um oh gosh, it was like reading, literature, language arts period. I don't know what it was taught by a basketball coach. But he had us read all these books, and they were thick volumes. And I was like, what's wrong with this man? We were reading Roots. And I was like, dang, man. Then we had to have like little quizzes on it. And then we read Malcolm X. That's the first time I read Malcolm X was middle school. And that's the first time I actually heard more about him. And, from that, and then I kind of tapered off, and I didn't really care about history until I got older. And then, you revisit the Spike Lee Malcolm X, and then you see the documentaries that are coming out now, and then you see the documentaries of King, and you're like, man, these two men, they hit a pivotal moment in their lives, like their later years, right before they died. Like Malcolm X, once he came back from Mecca, he started to see that, oh, there's Muslims of all um, shades of color, and he started kind of expand a little bit. And but while he was going through a period of change, he got assassinated. And it's the same for Martin Luther King when he's going through a period of change, and his mind was becoming expanded beyond just the civil rights. Like, oh, there's economic hardships, and then there's international racism, and then he got assassinated. So it was like, as long as those men stayed in their boxes, they probably would have been alive today. But they took the risk of going outside the comfort zone and saying, to hell with it, I'm going to speak about this because this is something that needs to be highlighted. And I appreciate those men for what they did, in the
They literally put
sacrifice
their
they made.
lives on
Yeah.
the line. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like what we're studying today. And I just feel, I don't know what the kids are studying in school. Um, but it is just a lot of great resources out there now than when I was in school about Malcolm X, and more things coming out about him and King that you could do a great history class on. And I don't know what the kids are studying, but they're missing out on a lot of wealth of information. And hopefully when they get older, they'll go back over these documentaries and they'll get to read about Alex Haley's Malcolm X, or even King's book From Community to Chaos. Like, he wrote books. And I don't know, I just hope that the kids know that where they are now, they have so much information, and they they can have, I don't know, like a clearer view than what we had about who these two men were. Because it's not as cookie cutter as you think. These men were complex, and they touched
Very
on
complex.
complex issues later on in their lives. And I think that's, I don't know, I think it's interesting, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this up, though, too. I liked how they brought up, because here's the thing. I've always wondered what was Martin Luther King's final moments like
Mm,
before he got assassinated.
yeah.
And to know that he was actually happy because of the things that he's been doing, and feeling like he's actually accomplishing something in his life. And he acted like a 10-year-old, throwing a pillow at his friends and having that little small moment. And he knew that his time on this earth is probably going to be up soon, just like what his friends said in
Yeah.
the documentary. But in those final moments, you can see that, in a way, that his work might have been completed
Hmm.
because of the fact that he feels at ease. And I believe if he was still around, I believe after that, I believe that he would probably be done with the marching, done with everything, even though he was a perfectionist and he
Hmm.
was also a
Hmm.
workaholic. I believe that he would have saw the changes that he's due.
Oh, well, oh, John, you pause. But yeah, I think if King was alive, he would probably, um, I don't know if he would be like in politics, but I think he would probably still be doing a lot more grassroots campaigns. Just marching more and expanding more upon his international the spotlight on international racism, because like Andrew Young was saying, he wanted to expand and touch on issues outside of the US, and address racism all over the world. Really was what he really wanted to do. Um but yeah, another thing that in the documentary that really, I guess I would say really stood out. Oh, John's back. John, go ahead with
Yes.
your yeah.
Okay. So before I get interrupted again, where connection goes bad or something. But my point was this: what I was trying to make with Martin Luther King, I feel like with his final moments,
Hmm.
I feel like that would be the final stepping away from him. Even though he was a perfectionist, he was a workaholic, he was passionate about what he did. But I believe since now he actually crossed over to where out of his comfort zone, I believe this would be the part where he winds up departing from everything and focusing on his family life, probably. Because we also heard in the documentary itself where he was basically wearing himself out to the point of exhaustion, anxiety, fears, insecurities. His friends weren't sure about what he was doing anymore. He went into a whole entire complete march by himself without any extra security with his friends. And he got hurt when he
Hmm.
was down in there whenever he didn't have any sense of backup or anything, and without even doing any research into what was actually happening, what he was being faced with at all, because even his friend said this is actually dangerous. I don't think you should be doing this alone by yourself. But he
Hmm.
went on ahead. He did it anyways without even knowing, and he even acknowledged. I like how he acknowledges the fact that he messed up.
Oh, you're talking
Versus,
about one in Tennessee?
yeah, the one in
Yeah,
Tennessee,
yeah, the march
because
for the sanitation workers. Yeah.
right, like I said, economics and stuff like that with the
Hmm.
workers' salutations. But I like how he acknowledges the fact where he messed up. He didn't do his research and everything. He thought it was just very cut and dry, like any other march that he's done. And so he thought he could do the same thing that he did in Selma, same thing he did in California, same thing. But he realizes then that each state, each town is going through their own individuality of economics, racial issues, and stuff like that. And each racial issue is not the same as the others. And that opened up his mind even more.
Hmm.
But I like how he just acknowledges the fact that, hey, look, I messed up. I didn't do my research clearly. That was my fault on that part. I should have more people with me. I should have the people that I normally have with me. That's my mistake. I should have looked at the what I was actually fighting for versus just going in, because I thought what I was going in through this was just like everything else I went through. But I realize now that this is not the same issue. But those final moments of him fighting with his friends through throwing the pillow at each other and just enjoying each other, that told me right there that he was probably would walk away. That's just me thinking.
Hmm.
I don't know if you feel that same way though.
Yeah, I mean, the issue you were touching on, the sanitation workers, they were, like you say, it was economic. They were mostly marching because they wanted fair pay. So he was touching on that, and then I think that as the years went by, as we got into the late '60s, right before he died, he started to see that the marches and people's mindset was starting to shift a little bit. Like you say in Selma, you would march, you hit upside the head, then you say nonviolence. No, the sanitation workers, they were like smashing things and like, don't be touching me. And they were pushing back, and then also I wanted to touch on Stokely Carmichael. There started to be a shift in SNCC, the student nonviolent something something something. It started to be yeah, you can look it up. There started to be a shift in SNCC because Stokely Carmichael was saying Black Power, and that was the first time that word was brought up. And Martha King, it's interesting. You can see the rift, and how the next generation was coming up because they both were marching side by side. Um, and Stokely Carmichael was talking to the news reporter, and he was like, "Black Power, da da da." And Stokely is from the North, right? So he's like, "I'm
Right.
not with this nonviolent stuff. I grew up fighting." And Martin Luther King, he's patient, and I can imagine how challenging that is. Like he's challenging his leadership, right, in the march, but he handled it gracefully, and he's like, I understand what Stokely's talking about, but I want to focus more on a broader perspective, and that's why I said like nonviolence and power to all people. I think he was talking about, but I like you said, I think he understood where Stokely was coming from, but he said it in such a civil way that he wouldn't really bicker or belittle Stokely for his thoughts. And that takes skill to somebody disagreeing with you to just be a skillful at it like that, especially on camera, right? Because he knew if I attack him, then it's gonna be this thing where they're like, oh, the march is divided. Oh no,
Mhm.
but yeah, even in the end, Stokely respected Martin, even if they had differences of how the movement should go from here. But yeah,
Definitely.
going to the last moments, like you were saying, um, I think somebody, because they were in Memphis, right? And like I said, they were here for the sanitation marches and then some other marches. So they were in Memphis that morning or afternoon, and somebody knocked on his door and was saying, oh, we got to come to dinner at 6. Be sure you're ready. So he was at the bottom level, and then he was talking to, because Jesse Jackson was there. So I can't imagine just having to recount that, and you're actually there at the moment he died. That has to be mentally tough. But, like I said, they were throwing pillows, they were playful. And the documentary shows there's another side of Martin. There's a playful side, even when he's not marching and doing all these um going for people's rights. There's a playful side to him, and his friends talked about that playful side. Like he used to sing. Um, he was a workaholic, of course, and he didn't spend enough time with his kids. And his mom, Martin's mom, says she wants him to be on the road more. And I didn't know this, John, that he actually had a chance to take a sabbatical and just preach full time at this other church because they offered him an interim pastorship. But
Right.
he was,
I didn't know about that either.
I didn't know either. He had a chance to get out, really. But he was like battling the depression and just saying, "Oh, I could do more," and being a perfectionist. And like, no, I have to keep marching. I have to keep doing this. I have to keep doing that. And yeah, it was a cost to his family, just that they didn't get to see him more. And Martin's mom was saying to his secretary, "Can you tell him that once he gets through in Memphis, that we want to see him more, and that he needs to just take a couple days or a week off just to be with his family." You know, um, but he was battling his insecurities, and I find that refreshing actually because, like I said, I'm from Atlanta, so Martin Luther King is a god in Atlanta. um, so it is refreshing to hear from his friends that he was battling insecurity and depression because it makes him human to me. And I always thought, this man's human, like I think I was in college when I first learned that he used to smoke cigarettes. I was like, no, smoke cigarettes, not Martin. Dang. St. Martin
Not my
smoking
Martin.
cigarettes. There's a picture of him
It's
just
like, no,
smoking
not my
cigarettes.
Martin.
Uh-uh. He's smoking cigarettes, and of course you learn about the infidelity and all the other stuff. But I actually think that these character flaws just, and I did quotes for the people that are listening. I actually think that these just, it's refreshing to see the humanity of Martin is what I'm trying to say. um just like the depression, I could do more, I didn't do enough, I must keep going, these people need me, but the work's not done. But I guess if I wish that he could have came to a sense of self and said the work will always be there. I just need to focus on my family. And I'm gonna take a sabbatical, and I'm gonna preach a little bit more, and then, but I think even if he took a sabbatical, it just seemed like everybody around him was so lost without him. Right? Like nobody knew how to be
Right.
their own leader because he was their leader. And when he died,
Right.
like Andrew was saying, it was a hole in the movement, and the movement just fell apart because they didn't know how to lead in a sense. And it's just really sad. Um, yeah, and
Also,
like,
too,
yeah.
I think if you took the job at that time with
Hmm.
being a preacher too, I think he'd just be settling. He would never be actually happy.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, if the fight to everybody else is over, for Martin Luther King Jr., it's still there. It's still a fight that needs to be fought for. The fight is not over in his eyes,
Yeah.
which is also why we don't see him preaching or anything like that. Yeah, he winds up partnering up with his father for a little bit and everything, but he goes right back to marching, right back out on the battlefield, pretty much. And this is what I like, though, too. While our soldiers are actually at Vietnam, fighting and putting their lives on the line, Martin Luther King is also fighting other things in our own state,
Mm.
in our own country as well. He's just fighting a different war.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the way I looked at
That
it.
is interesting. Yeah. I guess he wouldn't be settled because he would just be like, I need to be a foot soldier. He was mostly just a foot soldier, like a general. He needed to get out in the battlefield with the people. So it was what they call a servant leader. He gets out there and he does the work, put the boots to the ground, as they say. But yeah, his dying just that last moment where he was joking and laughing, and then pow, just
Cut
gone in
suddenly.
an instant. Yeah, and it just, you hear about the assassination, right? Years and years, in the textbooks, Martin Luther King got assassinated. But to hear from his friends up to his last moment of a laugh, like a joyous laugh, and then your life is cut short in that instant. It,
It's very
it
graphic on the way
oh,
they paint it, too.
oh yeah, especially Jesse, because he was right there. He was he was joking with Jesse. And Jesse's like, I heard a pop. And then he fell. And he's like, what's going on? I think he just got shot in the shoulder. And it was much more severe than that. And we find out later on that, you know, when he was lying in state, that his jaw, they shot part of his jaw off, unfortunately. And it was hard for the funeral director to make him look good or something, make them mold them or something, whatever they do, which I don't want to know.
Right. Me
But
either. The less I know about that job, the better off I am.
I want to know what's going on in the funeral home.
Right.
But but yeah, it I don't know. It just affected me just to hear that. No, his last moments was something very joyous, and with his friends, and those just surrounded by people that love him, and all of a sudden he's gone in an instant, you know. And I wanted to bring this up. Harry Belafonte was a friend of Martin Luther King, and he said that in the few years, I guess this would be after the voting rights and everything else, he noticed that Martin had a tick when he used to talk, and it used to be this stutter, right? And and he noticed it and he took note of it. And words, it would be hard for him to get words out sometimes. And then one day he noticed the tick was gone. And I think he asked him what happened. And I think Martin himself was like, I have accepted the fate of death, you know, that I may die someday, you know, and I just have to accept that and face that fear. And he faced that fear of death, that okay, my life may be cut short at any moment. So I think, like we were talking about earlier, that's why he was pushing and he made this shift to okay, I'm going to, in the last few moments of my life, I don't know when, I'm going to talk about the Vietnam War. I'm going to talk about economic hardships. I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Oh no, I lost support.
Yep.
Gonna keep going. Gonna go to Tennessee. I'm gonna march with the sanitation
Yep.
workers. Oh, I made a mistake. I admit I made a mistake. I miscalculated this march, but we're gonna continue this march anyway. So he just went full throttle into I'm gonna do everything that I was always afraid to do, and I admire that. And that's
Me too.
something
He
that
lived every
people
day
need
as
to
if it was his
do.
last day on Earth.
It's something we need to learn to do.
Right. Definitely. We can learn a lot from Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
And I liked how, after he's buried and stuff like that, they go over to the building, to the office building, and they're not rioters or not anything like that. You have people that were so attached to Martin Luther King Jr. that they were literally they want something to hold on to. And so that way they can actually say that they had something to believe in,
Hmm.
even though he's gone. And then I also like how one of the black protesters were talking about this. It's like, why are we fighting against each other? Everything that Martin Luther King is doing and everything, that's not the way to remember him by. Because we're actually hurting each other rather than standing with one another. And that was something that just spoke to me.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And and on the other end of that, there were riots when he
Yep.
died. And you know, it seemed like when he died, a void happened. Like you not only had this shift of leadership that just got lost, you had riots in all the major cities. And you know, you have people that riot and they say, well, I have a future now. You know, people that probably thought that Martin Luther King and this whole nonviolence thing was some bullshit. They even when he died, they were so attached. It left such a void in the world, basically, in the black community, that even if they didn't agree with his tactics, or they were like Stokely Carmichael, like we need to attack them because they're attacking us, they knew that he was the key to teaching them how to live in peace with their enemies, you know, like just he was such an important pinnacle for everyone, even his enemies. That when he died, it was like, oh crap, now we don't have anything to hold on to. Now we're going to riot 10 times more. That's what y'all want. That's what you're going to get. And I think, I don't know where I heard this from. I want to say even Malcolm admitted that, that if King left, then there would be this, I don't know, riots or something. I don't know. I have to go back and fact check that.
I know what
But
you're
yeah,
talking about. I can't. I know
I,
I
I
know what
have
you're
to go
talking
back
about
and check it. Yeah, yeah. But
because I
yeah,
remember that quote. But yeah,
this documentary though, in conclusion, this documentary was eye opening. You
yes,
learn a lot about Martin, and you learn about his politics, how they changed and they shifted, and how complex he is, and just everything he faced. And the name of it is King in the Wilderness, because once he took that stance with Vietnam, he had Johnson after him. Like, what the hell are you doing? I just signed your voting rights bill and you against me in this war? What's wrong with you? He had his friends turn on him, and turn his back on him. Financial backing for the movement was gone, or going away, or dwindling. But, he still stuck up for his principles, and that shows character.
it really
And
does.
he could have stayed in that bubble, and been safe and had the financial backing of everybody. And everybody's like, oh, he's so nice. He just so mild mannered. Yes, civil rights. Oh, he won the Peace Prize. Oh, it's so great. But no, he came out that bubble. So I'm gonna speak against the Vietnam War. Not only like black soldiers shouldn't be going there when they don't have equal rights, but also why are we fighting in this war? And he spoke about world peace and international racism. Like, you could see the future of what he wanted to talk about. And his life was cut short from talking about that. But the I guess the good part is that he did take a stance. He did take a chance, you know. So I like the documentary. I think it's
I
eye
do
opening.
too. It's very eye opening, and this is just my closing thoughts too. Is I just want to say thank you for telling me to check out this documentary because I even learned more about Martin Luther King, and also too his level of thinking went way beyond anything, beyond the marches, beyond anything that you can imagine, and speaking out against things that people were for, certain
Mm,
things, and having someone of color speak out against something that they didn't believe shows courage.
mm,
Because I have a saying: a closed mouth doesn't get you anywhere; an open mouth gets you to places that you never thought you could go before. And that's what a wise person once told me. That's something that just stuck with me. But it's true. The things that Martin Luther King Jr. did went way beyond anything that anybody could imagine. He went the distance. He did what he had to do. And even though his we have a long way of going, his legacy still carries on. And we can carry it on through us if we allow it to. But the question is, though, are you willing, you, the listeners, or the audiences, depending on what you believe, are you willing to carry that legacy in your heart and let it flow out through you so you can be a vessel for somebody else? Because it's easy to be salt and light to someone than it is to hide in darkness. To show people less respect than would you treat somebody with disrespect, or will you show someone the same respect that you expect from them? That's the question.
mm.
But Martin Luther
Dang.
King will always you can be a better person, and just by carrying on his legacy and being a standout. And if there's something that you feel like that you need to speak out against, don't be afraid to speak out against it. Rise above it, face it, and maybe you might make a difference too in somebody else's life. You never know whose life you're affecting in any way or shape or form. But that's everything that I have to say about this documentary, though. It's moving,
right,
it's heartfelt. I'm not going to go that far, but but just look deep within your hearts and everything and examine your own self. And if there's any type of racial thought in your head, or if there's any type of way of thinking negatively towards someone, think of it with a positive. Don't fight it with a negative. And maybe someone might want to talk to you that you never thought would be possible. Because your eyes could be opened. And also, too, don't be afraid to ask questions. Not everybody's going to go on ahead and attack you for asking questions or anything. That's how I learned. That's how I have amazing friends that showed me through things. And that's why I'm enlightened to things. And that's why I appreciate Tomeka and Tamara for what they do on this podcast. And also, too, as my friends. So I just want to say thank you for having me as a guest. It's always an honor to be on.
All right, John. Yeah, I'll cry after the broadcast. I can't cry in front of the audience because they expect me to be tough. I must be tough now. But yes, John. I think from King you can learn you to speak out, even if it's not the popular choice. But also know that once you speak out, you may have to stand alone. And that's okay, because somebody has to be a trailblazer, right? You can't always stay within your comfort zone. You got to push out beyond the walls, beyond the limitations, and speak out for others and issues that concern you. And I think that's what we can learn from King, not what our textbooks taught us in school, not what you hear from somebody else or their thoughts on King. Read his own words, like he has plenty of books. I got one of his books. I think it's called From Community to Chaos, but I'll put it in the description. It's his own words. Read his words, read other people's words. Get firsthand accounts of who these people are, not just what you read in a textbook at school. Go beyond your textbooks and read Malcolm X by Alex Haley. This is autobiography. He wrote in it too. Like just read about these people. And it's unfortunate our textbooks have them in this cookie cutter image. Something in small chunks that we can digest easily. No, I want complexity in my heroes.
I do too. Because it gives you a humanization of who they are.
Yeah.
A representation of who they are.
Yeah. And if you want, you can come to Atlanta and come to the King Center, Martin Luther King
I'll do
Center.
that.
It is that's all I'll say about it. It's a good center. I've been. It's just Atlanta, so you just gotta strap up. That's all I say.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but but John, tell everyone where they could find you.
Well, you can find me with my bulletproof vest on at Movie Lovers Unite on my channel over there. You guys, here's the thing. Go on ahead, follow me underneath Movie Lovers Unite on Facebook underneath the same brand name, on Pinterest and on Instagram as well. If you want an audio-only podcast of our episode and many episodes that we do there at Movie Lovers Unite, you guys can get that wherever you guys get your major podcasts from. We're on all major platforms, so go on ahead, pick your poison, pick whichever one that you like, and go on ahead and subscribe over there. But also, too, go on ahead, rate us on Apple Podcasts and also on, of course, on Spotify as well, because now you can rate us on Spotify. It allows other people to be able to find us and everything. Without that, they're not going to be able to find Two Blur Girls podcast, not going to be able to find Movie Lovers Unite. So go on ahead, rate us, comment, do all that stuff. Also, too, there's actually this new platform called Goodpods. Goodpods is basically social media for podcasters. So go on ahead, rate us on Goodpods, comment on individual episodes, and we'll comment back to you. if you wind up liking our episode. Even if you didn't, tell us what you didn't like so we can improve on certain things that we're doing. We're not perfect. So go on ahead, give us a review, tell us what you think. Another thing, too, is go on ahead to, I actually partnered up with Two Blur Girls podcast. At the end of this month, we're wrapping up our Children of St. Jude's Hospital. All proceeds go over to the Children of St. Jude's Hospital. And get yourself a Scentsy, spend $5 to $10 at the Scentsy store. All proceeds, once again, goes to the Children of St. Jude's Hospital. If you guys want to, go on ahead, donate to our page. This is just to keep the lights on at Movie Lovers Unite. This is for our podcasting equipment, for me to be able to do streaming arts and everything else behind the scenes. But if you choose to do so, just go on ahead and go to GoFundMe.com/Movie Lovers Podcast. Donate $5 to $10 over there. If you can't, that's okay. Go on ahead, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. Share this with everybody. And everything at Movie Lovers Unite on YouTube. And of course, if you want to reach out to me and you're a sponsor, just go on ahead and email me at movieloversunite@gmail.com. And then, of course, I'm on TikTok as well at Movie Lovers Unit 0. And then on Twitter as well at Movie Lovers Unit as well.
Wow.
Thank you.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
I'm internationally known.
Boom. All right. So it's my turn.
Yeah.
Yes, Two Blurred Girls. You can follow us on Facebook at Two Blurred Girls Podcast. Oh, guess what? We're on Twitter. Hey, it Blurred Two Girls. And coming at you. Boom. Instagram at Two Blurred Girls _podcast. And hey, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. We have more videos to come. And see our previous videos as well. We talk about everything from history. Last week we talked about Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So it's a hodgepodge of topics that we discuss. And guess what else we're on, John? We're on Twitch. Oh my goodness.
What?
Two Blurred Girls Podcast. Oh, and here's the kicker. We also have an audio podcast on Hello Apple. Boom. Guess what else we got? Oh, Google. Hello. We're also on iHeartRadio. And we're on Anchor Podcasts. Whoa, we're on, guess what? Boom, Goodpods. Like John was saying, Goodpods is like a social media platform for podcasters. Oh, also, we're on Amazon Music. And it won't let me put other things here either, but we're on Audible. We're on more platforms. I think we're on Radio Public as well. But yeah, just find Two Blur Girls podcast and subscribe to our audio podcast as well. John, it's always a pleasure to have you come back. I'll probably be on more of your shows, but you need to be on more of our shows, okay?
I promise you, I'll be on more of your shows. Go on ahead, give me that open invitation. I'm there. I promise you, it won't be 90 years.
Open, it's always been open.
But here's the thing: I don't know much about Full Metal Alchemist. Hey, Google me. I have a full slate of shows. I got Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, when's your next show? What are you talking about?
Well, Tuesday, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm going to be doing a Texas Chainsaw Massacre review of the 2022 massacre of that movie, because it is a massacre of a movie, and I'll explain why in my review, of course. Then Monday, Charlie and I are going to be doing our best and worst films of 2021. So we're finally doing that. It only took us 3 months to do our best worst 2021, but here we are. And then sometime soon, I'm going to be doing the Batman review whenever it gets released. So Alex and I are going to be doing that. That is to TBA. No, that's not TBA. That's TBA. To be announced soon.
Doing that? Because I'm supposed to see it not the opening day, but I may see it that Saturday.
I might go see it Tuesday, to be honest. $5 Tuesdays. I can go see a 3-hour movie.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, John, you forgot to tell him I was also on your show because I was doing the Batman review of all the Batman films.
I'm actually surprised you're not Batman out. I'm surprised you're not Batman fatigued over that. But yes.
I was on a Movie Lovers podcast marathon We were
Yeah,
reviewing
nothing but
Batman.
Batman movies.
Yeah, from 1989 to where we stopped.
2012. Well,
Yeah, Nolan.
yeah.
And I may
Well,
jump
actually,
on
2008 because you were from 89 to 2008, and Alex finished off at 2012. So you were.
Oh yeah, dang.
So,
Mm.
but still,
yeah,
it was
check out
fun. Go in and check out those videos.
Yeah, totally. All right, John. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. I'll probably be on
Appreciate
your
you
Batman
too.
show because I'm not Batman.
Yes, you will.
yet.
You will.
All
You
right,
will.
everybody. Stay tuned next week for our next podcast show. Peace
Right.
out.
Later.